Welcome back to the Deeply Rested podcast. Today's conversation is for my fellow highly sensitive business owners. Being ambitious and sensitive is a complicated experience. You have big dreams, but not a lot of energy to realize those dreams, which can be really frustrating. But don't despair. Today's guest is going to walk us through a tried and true method for creating scalable success as highly sensitive business owners. I can't wait for you to meet the lovely April Snow. April is a licensed psychotherapist, author, consultant, and host of the Sensitive Stories podcast. April specializes in working with highly sensitive people to help them move beyond overwhelm by accessing their sensitive strengths. April is gentle, kind, and incredibly smart. So grab your weighted blanket and prepare to be inspired by the possibilities of what you can achieve as a highly sensitive business owner. Welcome to Deeply Rested, the podcast that helps people doing good work in the world take incredibly good care of themselves. I'm your host, retired therapist and disillusioned business coach, Megan Megginson. I'm on a mission to help people like you unlearn the rules that keep you trapped in self-doubt so that you can recover from burnout and finally become deeply rested. If you enjoyed today's show, be sure to subscribe to this podcast and join our weekly newsletter at deeplyrested.com/newsletter. Now, it's time for the show. Welcome back. I'm your host, Megan Megginson. Today, I'm talking with April Snow, licensed psychotherapist, author, and consultant out of California. April specializes in working with highly sensitive introverts and therapists to help calm the storm of overwhelm, anxiety, and self-doubt to allow their innate sensitive strengths to shine through. Having held various managerial roles before becoming a therapist, April's specialty is creating systems during times of growth and finding organization amidst the chaos. She now applies her innate organizational skills to inspire overwhelmed therapists to think outside of the box to create systems and ease in their practices. April has also created and led highly sensitive person workshops all over the country, as well as through her online school, Sensitive School. In this conversation, I'm talking with April about her journey building successful businesses as a sensitive therapist. And then we pivot and talk all about when you should and should not add passive and scalable income streams to your business if you are also a highly sensitive person. We round out the conversation sharing our best advice for other ambitious, sensitive therapists who want to create incredible success without burnout. April and I truly believe that it is possible to be sensitive and successful, and I hope that this conversation leaves you feeling inspired and ready to think about what comes next for your life and business. Enjoy. Wow. Hi, April.
Hi, Megan. Thank you so much for having me.
Oh, I'm sincerely so happy you are here. And every time you and I get together and have a conversation about being highly sensitive, like magic happens. So I'm feeling very good about this.
I agree. I'm excited to be able to offer a new perspective around being highly sensitive and a business owner.
Okay. All right. Well, I'm very curious to follow up with you on that little seed that you're planting. But before we dive in, for those of you who don't know April specializes in helping highly sensitive introverted therapists. And today we're going to talk all about what it's like to be a highly sensitive and ambitious therapy business owner. And I'm very excited to hear April's thoughts on all of the goodness that comes from being a highly sensitive person as well. So before we dive in, April, I want to just do a quick rundown. Can you tell us what is a highly sensitive person and what makes highly sensitive therapists unique?
Yeah, I think it's great to start with this question because some people may have heard the term, but not quite know what it means. So a highly sensitive person, or HSP for short, is one of 20% of the population who are born with a trait. It's called sensory processing sensitivity. Essentially, it just means that your nervous system and your brain are wired to be more perceptive. We're naturally more empathetic. We process information at length more so than others would do. And this is just a few of the characteristics. We could really flesh that out, but just for time's sake, that's just the essence of the traits. But as you can imagine, when you're taking in so much, the downside is getting more easily overwhelmed because you're noticing and you're feeling everything just so deeply.
Right.
So this is definitely an asset as a therapist, right? Being more empathetic, noticing more details, being able to pick up subtleties in body language, being able to be more attuned to the nonverbals that are happening in the room. But it also means we're more prone to compassion fatigue and burnout, especially when you're trying to do too much. There's not enough downtime in your schedule, or maybe you're trying to do everything yourself without having help.
Yes. I love, April, that you always approach conversations about being highly sensitive, leading with the strengths, because it's so easy to focus on the negatives. And I feel like there's a lot of talk out there in general about the limitations of being a highly sensitive therapist or a highly sensitive business owner. And I've experienced personally over the years that if you listen to all of that noise, it's really easy to believe that it isn't possible to be highly sensitive and super successful. It's like, well, you're highly sensitive. You're just too overwhelmed. You just can't do it. Don't even try to build a bigger business. You're just going to get burnt out. It's not going to work for you. But April, I think you and I are living examples right now of two highly sensitive business owners who are sensitive and successful.
Exactly, right? Because it's easy to believe all those narratives. And maybe because you're actually living it in the moment, but that doesn't mean it's not possible. There's not changes you could make or different approaches you could take to your business or your therapist life that could actually make the work more sustainable and make more possible.
And it comes back to that question, who are you listening to? Whose rules are you following? Because if you are listening to business coaches or mentors who are high energy extroverts, and they're telling you to run your business by doing X, Y, and Z, and then you do that and you burn out and you tell yourself, see, I guess I just wasn't cut out for it. Like, well, hold on, just take a step back. You were never doing it in a way that was going to honor your strengths and set you up for success in the first place.
That's exactly right. That's why you always will hear me say, think outside the box, do life and business on your own terms.
Right.
And, I think we'll get more into that as our conversation unfolds, but it's so important just to remember that do it your way, right? Not what everyone else is doing.
Make it work for you. Make your business work for you. I mean, that's exactly the liberating thing about being a business owner is you get to make the rules, you get to set the expectations. And so, yes, I feel so aligned with everything you're saying so far, your description of what it means to be a highly sensitive person, the strengths that come with being a highly sensitive therapist, but also the vulnerabilities, right? The areas that we need to watch out for, being easily overwhelmed or being more prone to burnout. But if we do things with our own needs in mind, first and foremost, it is completely possible to be sensitive and successful. Does that sound right to you?
100% right.
Amazing. Well, we are going to, in just a little bit, talk strategies and share advice for our, fellow sensitive business owners who are listening to this conversation. But first, April, I would love to hear more about your personal journey as an ambitious, highly sensitive business owner. Take me on the journey. Where did you begin your professional journey and where are you now?
Yeah, I mean, it really goes way back. The seeds were planted probably really 20 years ago when I became a manager for the first time. When I was in Delaware, where I'm from, I worked at a family-owned small business, a natural food store in Delaware when I was in college. And then as soon as I graduated, they offered me a management position. So I stepped into that role in my early 20s.
Wow, that's like very young to be a manager of other humans.
It was very young. When I look back, I'm quite surprised at myself. And then at one point, I was holding the general manager role, overseeing 30 employees, and then also the marketing manager role, because we were a smaller business, 30 people. So you often had to wear multiple hats, right? Which was great for experience, because it was in that experience that I realized, I have a lot of creative ideas around growing a business. And also, I realized in my one-to-one mentoring as a manager, they wanted to be a therapist. So it was actually a really fruitful experience, which eventually led me to California to go to grad school to become a therapist. And while I was finishing up my associate hours, my internship, I worked at a it was a nonprofit counseling center as the admin manager. So then I was able to look at building the blocks of business and therapy under the same umbrella.
Right. The back end pieces.
Exactly. And there I was overseeing 50 pre-licensed therapists.
Holy shit. That's a lot of people.
Yeah, there's a lot of people to manage and help support. But again, so grateful for that experience because it led me then to help me build my own private practice. And by the time, before I was even licensed, my private practice was humming along. That's when we did our next program together. I wasn't even licensed yet. I had a really strong niche with HSPs, working with highly sensitive people. I really built a name for myself. I was even consulting then before I was licensed, helping others do the same thing. And I opened my consulting business, which is oh-so consulting. Other people know it as sensitive therapists. And then went on to, right out of the gate, I led retreats on the West Coast and the East Coast. I've done online courses and which helped me extend my reach, and then have now published a book, a guided journal, and then another book coming out in the spring. So it's been quite a fruitful journey, and a lot of those pieces helped get me here. And I have grateful to have had a lot of different layers of experience.
We are definitely going to break some of these pieces down. But first, I just have to hats off to you. What an incredible journey. You're underplaying your success too, I have to say, for those listening. I mean, April has created a brilliant business where she has such a wide reach and is impacting so many lives. And I love hearing the evolution and how one chapter really led organically or fed into the next chapter, and these pieces around connecting with people, managing people, creating back-end systems, running your private practice, consulting. All of these pieces have come together to create the sensitive therapist, dare I say, empire that you have today. That's incredible. So before we talk about some of those unique pieces, I think I imagine many of the sensitive folks who are listening to this conversation right now are saying, well, April must not be as sensitive as me because I could never do all of that. What do you want to say to those people?
It's so funny because I hear this all the time. How can you do that as a sensitive person? And, as you're talking, I was connecting with, it's because I've always followed my intuition, trusted that inner pool, right? Doing things that I'm really passionate about, that fill me up, that excite me. And that feeds me as I go through it, right? I'm never doing things because I should do it.
Right.
I'm doing it because I really want to do it, because I feel called to, right? So that you could say that about managing all the way to now writing and consulting, right? There's been something more purposeful underneath, which has allowed me to do more.
Yeah. I mean, how I'm making sense of that in my own mind, you've listened to your intuition and you've moved towards what brings you joy and what fills you with passion. And you have been very intentional about not doing what you were, air quotes, supposed to do or what you should be doing.
Exactly.
You've worked for many years to create some really solid boundaries.
And giving myself time to let it unfold at my own pace, right? Because, the sensitive therapist business has been around, since we met, 2016?
2016, 17.
So about 6 years. And, I've slowly layered things one by one. So I didn't start here doing consulting, courses, retreats, writing books. I didn't start there. I did one thing at a time. I bought the domain and then I was like, oh, I did that. Okay, now I'm going to think about doing a retreat. And it took me, along with my co-facilitator, a full year to plan that first retreat. Right? And so things have slowly been added on. So I have thought outside the box. I've trusted my intuition, leaned into what feels exciting and meaningful for me, and given myself permission to go at my own pace.
It's so beautiful. And it really highlights for me the reminder not to compare yourself to other people, right? Because there's a fine line between being inspired by someone and comparing yourself to someone.
Right.
And I want the highly sensitive, ambitious people listening to this conversation to be inspired by you, Okay, listeners, like I want you to hear April's story and be like, wow, look what's possible for me too. That is so exciting. And I'm going to suck up her advice about setting boundaries and doing one thing at a time, leading with passion, letting it unfold slowly. And I'm going to trust that that's going to get me exactly where I am meant to go. I don't want you to listen to April's journey right now and be like, holy shit, she's done, there's no way I can do all of that. That's like 10 things. There's no way I can do 10 things. I love what you're saying, April. Yeah, you're not going to do 10 things right now. Nobody's asking you to do 10 things right now. Right now,
and that's not what I did either.
One thing.
Right.
And that's not what you did either. In fact, if I'm ever doing more than 2 things, I'm in overwhelm.
That's right.
And I just know that and it's hard. I mean, I'll be honest. I don't know if you struggle with this too, April, but there are so many things I want to say yes to from a place of joy and passion. Like I want to say yes to so many things. And it is hard for me as a highly sensitive person to know my limitations and to know that I have to say no to most things because I just can't do all the things at once.
It's so true.
When I do one thing, man, I'm going to do it really fucking well.
That's right. We love a deep dive as HSPs. We really love a deep dive. And that's been my main practice over this last year is saying more than I say yes.
Yes. And that's really hard to do.
It's hard to do, because there can be that fear of missing out or worry about, this opportunity may never come again. But really, do I want to do something just to do it? Or do I want to do it because I have the bandwidth and the interest to do it? I'm going to do it really well and it's going to feed me.
Yeah. Yeah. And I've found that it's really helpful to ask myself the question, is now the time I'm supposed to do this thing?
That too.
Because I can get really stuck sometimes and feeling like the no is permanent. Like if I say no to this right now, I say no to it forever. Right. And just sort of breathing through that and reminding myself, I'm not saying no to this forever, but I am saying I don't have the capacity to do it well right now. So I'm going to wait until the next chapter or the next season of my business when that can be my primary focus. And then I'll do it, and I'll do it really well.
Exactly. Yeah, it's a yes on your own terms.
That's right. And not comparing yourself to other people's yeses, because that's the fastest path to burnout and feeling super crappy about myself is comparing my path to people, to anybody really, but especially to business owners who aren't highly sensitive. We're just different fish.
That's right.
Wow, April, you have so much wisdom about this. I'm just soaking it in myself right now and really feeling into that reminder that it's one thing at a time. And you did not get to where you are today overnight. You have slowly and intentionally added pieces into your business model as the inspiration and the bandwidth converged.
That's right. Right. You need both of those pieces to coexist.
April, I'm curious, are you still seeing therapy clients?
I am, but I only see clients 2 days a week now, and probably eventually in the near future, dwindling it down to 1 day a week.
I've heard you talk before about the importance of diversity for highly sensitive people, especially in the different ways that you make money in your business. Can you say a little bit about that right now?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think it's really important to have other sources of income because then you're not completely tied into that caseload count, right? So if seeing clients is your only source of income, then there's a whole lot of stress that comes in, the pressure to market, to get more clients, to worry about if those clients are staying, to most likely push yourself to see more clients that is sustainable for you. And that creates a lot of problems for a sensitive therapist who really needs a lot more downtime and potentially other meaningful sources of work or recreation, right? And rest, right? We're here to talk about rest too. We need more rest.
Yeah.
Right? We need more time to recharge and unhook from the heavy work of being a therapist. It's fulfilling, but it's also emotionally and energetically heavy. And so I think it's really important to have a counterbalance somewhere.
Yeah. And It's interesting because this is where our paths have diverged a little bit, you and I, April, that, you are still connected to clinical work. I have stepped away from being a therapist. And I want to highlight that right now for the other sensitive therapists listening to this conversation. Just because you're sensitive doesn't mean you're not destined to continue seeing therapy clients.
Yes,
I think I hear some people, my business coaching clients, get caught in this binary from time to time of like, it's all therapy clients or I'm out and I'm just not meant for it at all. But you really are such a nice example of someone who has found a balance that really works well for you. You see therapy clients 2 days a week. Tell us about the rest of your week. What other ways in which do you spend your time?
Sure. So, we talked about doing one thing at a time. I'm a big fan of doing that day to day, week to week. So, for instance, Mondays, I ease into the week. That's my admin day. I take care of emails and any projects that I need to do. Tuesday is a consulting day. That's when I see my consulting clients who are therapists who are, needing support to build a sustainable practice. I also have, meeting with my VA on that day and maybe do any other interviews like podcasts or things like this. And then Wednesday, Thursday is just therapy clients.
Yeah.
Friday is a self-care day. I don't schedule anything that day. I also don't schedule anything on Mondays. So I have a free day on Monday to work. I have a free day on Friday just for me.
That's beautiful.
That's my week.
I can second that. For me, I feel my best when my day has one focus.
Yes.
And and I don't always have the luxury of that. There are some days where my two businesses are competing and I have to show up for them both. But I guarantee you by the end of that day, I feel so bone tired. And so I often come out of my office and look at my husband and say, like, my brain is oozing out of my ears right now. Like, I'm so done. And when I have a day where I'm just doing the one thing, like this is my client day, or this is my recording day, or this is my content creation day, I end that day and I actually end the day sometimes feeling like I have more energy than when I started the day because I'm just so happy.
Yeah, I love that. I mean, because we are sensitive people. A, we like to deep dive and get immersed in something that's really fulfilling and meaningful for us. And B, we need more times with transitions because we're processors. Our brains are wired that way. When you move out of an activity, you want to process what just happened. And before you go into the next activity, you want to process what's coming. So if you're switching hats throughout the day, eats up so much more mental and emotional energy than you need to.
It's so miserable. It's so
hard.
awful. I've spent years in that trap of, I feel like I'm like dancing, I'm like doing a tap dance. I'm like swapping out hats, just like left and right, like throwing them off stage. And it's chaotic. It feels chaotic. And you're right. It is absolutely that energetic piece where it's like my body is moving faster than my brain and my nervous system.
Right. Exactly.
And that is for me the fastest path to burnout is doing that juggling act and switching hats, 17 times in an hour. It's just not good for me.
It's too much.
So boundaries are king.
Boundaries in every form are so essential.
Okay, so here you are now. You have this wonderfully balanced schedule. I love the bookends of your schedule. And I know you have a lot to say about scheduling. We'll come back to that at the end.
That's true. I do.
But I love the bookends. I love that you have this free day on Monday to be inspired to work on your business in whatever way you feel called to do.
Yeah, whatever needs to get done.
Whatever needs to get done, there it is. Like the time is there, the space is there for it. And then you have Friday, which is this guaranteed resting point. It's not yet the weekend, but it's like, I love how your resting time is built in to your work week.
It's taken time to get there, but it is so essential to have that to know Friday is just for me. There's no one at home. It's not the weekend yet. It's a different kind of energy to it.
And I think there's a mindset piece there that's really important for highly sensitive business owners, that you have to learn to give yourself permission to let rest be part of your working routine.
Yes, part of the equation.
It's not, you're not being lazy. You're not being selfish. You're not wasting time. You're not being non-productive. Like rest is often the most productive thing you can do for yourself because it recharges you so that you can step back into your business with a clear head and an expansive mind. Yeah, I love the way that you're doing that, building rest in to Fridays. And for those of you listening, highly encourage you to do something like this for yourself, even if you have to start with a 2-hour chunk.
That's right. A morning here or there, right?
Yeah.
Or it could be a Saturday if you're not able to take Fridays off.
Yeah.
Just something that's predictable.
And protected. So you can practice enforcing that boundary of like, this is my rest time and I'm going to treat it as just as important of an event on my schedule as I would a client session.
That's right. Put it on your calendar and then it's non-negotiable.
Yeah. This is really hard to do. I want to be real clear about that because you and I are somewhat on the other side of some of these struggles.
That's right.
And it's easy for us now to be like, a piece of cake, I've got it down. But man, internalizing these new mindsets and learning to really honor and protect these boundaries is hard work, really hard work. Highly recommend you be in therapy while you do this because it's going to stir up some shit.
It will. It definitely will. And I see this all the time with my consulting work. There's an emotional layer underneath the business work, the therapy work, being a therapist, right? There's so much of our own stuff that comes in. And so, yeah, if you're struggling to set time for yourself, focus on what you want in your business. There could be something deeper to look at there that could be supportive and helping you move the needle forward.
And the deeper things could be your own trauma stories, your own family of origin stories, but also let's look top down too. It's capitalism, it's patriarchy, it's everything in our worlds contributes to us feeling like our sensitivities are a weakness and our need for rest are, wasteful and selfish. And I think collectively we really have to support each other in unlearning those stories.
Right. Creating a different narrative, right? Yeah. Knowing that you can get to your version of success by taking a different path. It doesn't have to look it doesn't have to look like what you've been told it's supposed to look like.
I love what you just said. You can get to your version of success by taking a different path. Your version of success, your definition of success is going to be uniquely yours. Can't compare to anyone else. And the path that you take to get from here to there is going to be uniquely yours. You can't, there's no swipe copy for like what your path is to your best life. Like you have to pave the way yourself by listening to your own intuitive needs.
And that's absolutely okay to do.
Yeah. There's no other way.
There's no other way.
Yeah. Exactly. So why don't we just go ahead and start celebrating it instead of resisting it?
Let's just skip to that part.
Yeah, that's right. Skip the 5 years of intensive psychotherapy that I had to do to figure this out and just do it. Good on you. If you can do that, make it happen. And if it's a struggle, it's okay.
Well, I mean, just to speak for myself, I didn't hear these types of conversations when I was going through it.
Yeah, no, you're right.
Right. When I started in this space working with HSPs, I was hungry to hear from others that it's okay, or to see my experience reflected in others. So I'm just feeling a little gratitude coming up here that we're able to have this conversation and offer it to others.
Yeah. Yeah. Thanks for saying that. I feel the same way. I didn't even know what a highly sensitive person was until I was several years into my business building journey. And it changed my life, really. Like just learning like, oh, this is a thing, like, oh, okay. It was a paradigm shift. And yeah, you're so right. If I reflect back and wonder, how would things have been different if I would have heard this conversation in 2014? I don't know. I'm going to have to sit on that one because a lot of things. So gratitude right back to you, April. This feels really, really good.
Yeah, it's exciting.
Okay. So before we pivot, I just want to highlight again the phenomenal achievements, the beautiful things that you have created and put out into the world for people like us to consume. You're seeing therapy clients. You offer business consultation. You've hosted successful retreats. You have online courses and you're a published author. Like you get paid to write books. What a dream. And you've done all of that as a highly sensitive person. Congratulations.
Thank you. Yeah. Hearing it back, I'm like, oh, wow, that is a lot. Yeah. And I can see the building blocks of that process. And it's such a privilege to be able to do that work, and it's so fulfilling, and yeah, it's phenomenal. Yeah, I'm at a loss for words for it. Thank you.
I know we're just staring at each other right now. Too bad people can't see this video. It's I'm so happy for you. And I hope that everyone listening again is inspired. Don't compare. That's not helpful, but allow yourself to be inspired by everything this highly sensitive person has accomplished.
It's possible for you too, in whatever form you want it to be in.
That's right. And on your own timetable.
That's right.
Okay. Wow. So much wisdom you have shared with us, April. And now I would love to pivot us towards strategy. There are a lot of ambitious, sensitive therapists who are listening to our conversation.
Yes.
And I imagine that these folks are ready to expand beyond button chair therapy.
Yeah.
And I know from working with my own business coaching clients that these folks are very curious about passive income. And they think that passive income is probably the solution to their exhaustion.
Yes.
So let's you and I talk about that right now. April, in your own words, what is passive income? And is it really passive?
Such a good question. I mean, really, when I think of passive income, I think of anything that I could sell or offer to my audience that's on autopilot, right? Where people can engage with it without me actually needing to be present in that moment. So I think typically when I think of passive income, I think of an online course. But there's so many other versions of that. It could be an ebook, a print book, a paid webinar. It could be affiliate income that you link to your blog or social. I've seen therapists sell like note templates or other documents for therapists or spreadsheets. You could have podcasts or YouTube ads, or there's so many things that are available as far as passive income. However, spoiler alert, it's not actually passive.
Worst movie title ever.
Exactly. I would say it's scalable. And I mean, once you create it, you put the work in to create it. That is not passive. But then, then you can earn income continually off of this product that you've created, this offering ongoingly.
And in fact, I wish we called it scalable income.
Right. That would be much more accurate. Right?
Much less misleading.
Much less misleading. Because I hear from therapists, and I actually just had a conversation about this today with a group of HSTs that I meet with. And, folks going through burnout and they're thinking, how can I pivot? But it's not the immediate answer that you think it is, because it does take time and work and investment.
That's right.
Because for me, for instance, I've taken years to build an audience that trusts me. I've written a lot of blogs, I've done videos, webinars, things like that, where they've gotten to know me. And now people can opt into my email list, and they get a series of emails that I've pre-scheduled. And then they get the option to buy an online course. All of those things have taken a long time to put into place.
Yep.
I didn't start off like that.
That's right. It's a long game.
It's a long game.
I love the game.
It's a beautiful game.
It's so great. It's fun. It gives you space to be creative.
Absolutely.
It's so scalable, but it's not instantaneous. And I would never say to anyone that it's the solution to your burnout.
That's right. Not the solution to your burnout. Although it is something that could expand your business, and it's a way to impact so many more people than you ever could.
It's like, it's a solution to working fewer hours and making more money. Okay, because I have a specific question I want to ask you, but I want to weave one thing in. April just listed off all of these income streams that are entirely passive, right? That people buy the thing. You could be asleep in your bed. Like, people are going to buy the thing. It's going to be there ready for them to digest. But just to introduce some ideas in the gray space too, there are also lots of things you can do that are like semi-passive. And I love the semi-passive offering. So for example, I run a group program called Next Level Therapist that's half passive, half active. All of the curriculum is pre-recorded. When people are, listening to the modules, doing the worksheets, I'm not teaching them live. That's pre-recorded. They can do it on their own time. And then I get to repurpose that every time I run the program. But there is a live component in that I'm showing up, doing one-on-one conversations, facilitating group work. And I think that the right next step for a lot of people is moving from entirely button chair therapy into something that's a bit of a hybrid between a live component, and a self-study component. And then there are the options that are entirely passive. So I just say that so everyone listening knows there's something for you in this bucket that you are going to like and is really going to be a good fit for your personality. But they all require the same kind of long game groundwork.
Mm-hmm. I love that semi-passive because I think that pulls into some of our, appreciation of having community or
Yes.
contact with others in a deeper way. So you can set the foundation of that semi-passive offer, whether it's recorded modules or something like that, and then you can reuse it over and over and over again, and help more people because it's going to take less labor to get to that offering every time. I love that.
Yeah. Again, it's scalable. That's what you need as a highly sensitive person. Well, I would probably say for any business owner, but especially those of us who are highly sensitive, we need things that are scalable.
Right.
The more scalable. That's right. The more scalable something is, the more freedom you have in your life and business. So here are all of these different options for you. Entirely passive, semi-passive. Totally agree about the reason the semi-passive works best for me is because I love the intimate relationships. I love the community. I don't want to give up that piece. It gives me joy. And then you have a traditional psychotherapy practice button share approach to your work. Okay. So there's just sort of a container for the things that you can choose from. And I want to talk more about the passive and semi-passive options. You say, April, that there are times when it's a good idea for ambitious, highly sensitive therapists to pursue the passive route or the scalable route. And there are times when it is not a good idea. In fact, it might be a really bad idea. Let's start with the good idea. When is it a good idea for our listeners to explore this new path?
Yeah, I would say, just reiterating some of what we said, but I think it's when you can create and then wait, right? For the income to come in.
Ooh, that's good. Create and wait. Yes.
Yeah, really. Like when you have the time, energy, and I would say the interest also to nurture an audience, create that offering, and then market in a way that feels aligned for you. Yeah. So you have time to go through that process and have that investment pay off.
Yeah.
So, you're going to be wanting to nurture a community and then get to know that community and then be able to offer them something that you can sell to them.
Yeah.
And I think investment in what you're doing is really important. Otherwise, it's not going to be sustainable. It's just going to be an energy drain.
Yeah. And remember, I completely agree with what you're saying. I think it's so spot on. And remembering when you are moving into the scalable income space, your learning curve is real steep, right? Yes. You're stepping into a brand new business model for the first time. And I don't want anyone to step into that space thinking it's going to be an organic extension of one-on-one therapy work, because it's not. You have a lot that you're going to have to learn. And it's all learnable and it's very easy to implement once you've got it down, but it takes time. You create and you wait. I think that is brilliant, April.
Yeah, and I appreciate how you bring up the skill set because you are going to be using new tools, most likely. But you'll build on some of the skills you've learned, around, putting on a website and, potentially using some of those other marketing tools. But there's probably going to be some tech involved or some new skills that you're going to implement. And for an HSP, we need time to settle in to get our nervous system used to doing something that's new and unfamiliar.
Yes. And let's weave in a financial component as well. I would say it's a good idea for you if you don't need a lot of extra money real fast.
That's right.
In fact, I would say it's a good idea for you if you have a bit of a business nest egg that you can use to invest in this new branch of your business or your brand that you're going to create, knowing that the return on investment will be high, but you're going to have to create and wait. It's not coming to you right away.
That's right. It's going to come down the road. Now, occasionally someone they'll see that instant success, but I would say that's definitely the exception.
Yeah, for sure. Especially in I would say that reliably, it will take time. Well, I said that backwards. It will take time before you will reliably be making more money.
That's right.
Right. There might be some like flashes in the pan where you do something and then you're like, oh my God, I just made $10,000. This is life-changing money for me. And you're going to be thrilled. And then it's going to be another 4 to 6 months before that happens again. So yeah, if you're in a place financially where you can tolerate investing more than you're getting for a little while, could be a great idea for you to take a step into pursuing the scalable income path.
Absolutely.
Okay, perfect. That's so clear to me. Let's look at the flip side of that coin. When would you not encourage a highly sensitive therapist to pursue a passive or scalable income path?
I would say simply if you don't have the time or you're already on the verge of burnout. Because I've seen a lot of therapists do this where they then pull the time from self-care, from sleep, from other things that are essential for sustaining at a reasonable level of emotional health. And so I would say if you need to sacrifice your essentials you need to be okay and to be your best self, that would not be a good idea.
Don't.
It's gonna push you towards burnout even faster, unfortunately.
Yeah.
Or if you're just pursuing it because you think you should, and you've heard about passive income, or you've heard about doing, consulting or whatever it is, or doing coaching, and you think, oh, I should be doing that. But we get really clear on why you're doing it, and do you have the space? And if you don't, what do you need to do to find the space? It could be hiring out, getting help, or it could be making other changes in your therapy business.
I like to tell people that I would love for you to have 1 day per week in your schedule.
Yes.
Empty.
That's right.
That you can protect to work on this new branch of your business before you commit to the path. Because I agree with you, as a highly sensitive person, it is always a bad idea to build on top of something that is already killing you.
Right. It will just crumble. And I've seen it happen so many times. You will crumble. And
then you'll blame yourself.
And then you'll blame yourself.
And then I'll be upset.
Well, I'll be upset.
Yes. Bad idea. You just can't do it. So if I'm hearing you correctly, I so completely, deeply resonate with you here, April. If you're in burnout, the first thing that you need to do is to recover and to figure out what is off in your life. What boundaries do you need to put in place with your business? You need to do your own healing work. You need to get yourself to the point where you feel like you're just breathing again. And you have some spaciousness and expansiveness to really think about what you're most inspired to do next. And that inspiration, I think, speaks to, don't do it just because your friends are doing it or you think it's the logical next thing to do. I want you to take a step forward because you feel deeply inspired to take a step forward.
That's right. Take some time to be with your own experience to figure out, what do I want to do? What would be fulfilling for me? Because I think we need that intersection where it's fulfilling and it's financially viable.
Yes, where it's fulfilling and it's financially viable. I want to repeat that back. That feels very wise. Does it make your heart sing? And does it make your bank account go cha-ching? Just made that up. I might just write that one down, put it on a sales page for later.
It's a good one.
Yes, because you're so right. It needs to be both, right? Because if you do something that you're totally passionate about, but it's just going to drain your bank account, that will lead to burnout because you will be broke and you'll be financially stressed out. So you can't do that. And if you go the other route where you're making bank, but you hate what you're doing, well, honestly, that's probably where our listeners are right now. Right? That they're doing pretty well financially. They're making money as a therapist, but they're not happy. They're drained. They're exhausted. They need something new and fresh. So I think we're both saying the same thing here, April, that we believe that highly sensitive therapists, you are capable of creating anything.
Absolutely.
But you have to start from a place of creativity and inspiration, and you have to have space and time available in your schedule that, make me make sure I'm getting this right, because I feel like this is crucial to the argument you're making. Only do this if you can do it without taking any time away from the ways in which you're taking care of yourself right now.
Right. Exactly.
So don't do it if it means you have to go to bed later or have one less date with your partner a month or not eat dinner with your family. Don't sacrifice those things in service of a bigger business. Am I getting that right?
Absolutely. Because you're going to need that nourishment to keep you going. As you learn this new skill, as you start to put yourself out there in a new way, as you expand what you're doing professionally, you're going to need those dates with your partner, those family meal times, the sleep, the self-care, whatever it is that fills you up. That's going to be essential fuel to keep going.
And I feel for me, an important part of my journey has been my own community. Like being in community with other highly sensitive business owners who are growing and expanding, who I can talk to when I'm overwhelmed or frustrated that I feel like I'm going too slow or whatever it is. I don't know that I would be where I am today without you and the other colleagues in my life who get it.
Absolutely. Because we exist in this very unique intersection, right? We just titled it Sensitive and Successful, right? You don't see that. That's not the norm of the person that you see out there. Right. So to see, this is my experience. There's others that are doing it well and having, a similar experience as me. So important.
That's beautiful. I had another question built into the conversation today, although I feel like we've been answering it throughout.
We've been covering a lot of bases. Yeah,
we really have. Yeah. But the question, just to come back to it, maybe hit some highlights. For those listening who really want to diversify their income streams, they feel ready to step into the passive, scalable space. What are your top suggestions to help them begin expanding their business while also protecting themselves from burnout?
Yeah. I'm looking at my notes and we definitely have covered some of these, but just to remind folks that are listening, really looking within for guidance of what to do next, right? Setting your own version of success, getting clear on what that means for you, including how much do I want to make? What would feel right for me, right? And how do I want to feel when I get there? So again, really anchoring within to figure out what that path forward is and going at it at your own pace and recharging along the way, right? Resting along the way is going to be really important. I would say slow and steady. I repeat that to myself when I'm feeling like I'm not going quickly enough or I'm not keeping up with everyone else. I just come back to me.
That's right.
And two things I think are important, which we haven't fleshed out a lot, which I think I would, love to touch more on, is getting help.
Oh, yes.
Investing in your business.
Oh my God.
Not being afraid to outsource. I think we both have done that along the way in different ways. And it could look, like, okay, I'm hiring a virtual assistant. Or I'm investing in a course that will teach me this skill, or I'm getting a consultant or a coach, or I'm joining a community, or getting an accountant, right? Or a biller, whatever that looks like. There's lots of different ways to get help, but not trying to do it all yourself. Yeah. It's going to be really important.
Because you can't grow if you're trying to do it all yourself. You won't grow. You will feel burnout and you won't grow. And then you'll blame yourself. And then again, April and I will be upset. So please don't do that.
That's right. And something that really surprised me at the beginning was how accessible it was to have help.
Yeah.
Right. To hire an assistant, to hire an accountant, to work with a lawyer, to get tech help, whatever it is. It's not as out of reach as I thought. So I just like to remind people of that.
Yeah. You start small.
That's right.
You just start
2 hours a week.
That's right.
Yeah.
Tiny. You identify in your business budget, what can I afford right now? And if you have $100 a week to start, plenty. That's plenty of money. You can hire somebody who charges $20 an hour to do 5 hours of work for you a week, and it will be a game changer.
It will be a game changer.
Yeah, I really appreciate you saying that, April, and I completely agree. I know it feels overwhelming when you're starting from zero, zero support. It feels like a pipe dream to think that you'll ever be making enough money to hire support. But I promise you, just invest a little bit at a time. I also find that I always feel like I have to invest just before I'm ready. Yes. Or just before I feel. There's always this stretch, right? When I'm investing in support, I'm like, oof, I feel like I can't afford this quite yet, but I'm kind of close. But I also know if I pay for this support now, it's going to rocket launch me to the next level.
That's right.
And every time I've done that, that has been the case. It really, be brave, bet on yourself.
Yeah, exactly. It really does open up a flow in your business because it frees up time and energy that you could rest, or you could be doing things that only you can do. That's like writing or recording videos or whatever, or showing up in, a community program, whatever it is.
And if you're feeling lost, get some guidance. Book a consult call with someone like April or me or some other person, some other mentor that you look up to. If you're feeling really stuck, like that's an excellent way to spend money, is to pay people to tell you how not to reinvent the wheel.
That's right.
Okay, what else? I think you had one more.
And speaking of that, reinvent the wheel, that's a perfect segue into what I want to say, because I think it's really important to not recreate the wheel. And part of that is creating systems, right?
Yes.
Email templates, workflows, anything that you do on a regular basis, write it down.
Yeah.
That way you're not holding it in your mind. And also someone else can do it for you. When you are able to hire a VA, and also a VA can help you set up workflows. But, I have templated emails for everything, creating automated responses, even just having an out of office reply on that everybody gets with your FAQs, that could be helpful, right? There's so many things that you could do to free up space and mental energy.
And if you're feeling overwhelmed about where to start, do a time analysis.
There you go.
2 weeks, track every single tiny thing you do with your time. And at the end of that 2 weeks, look back at that data set that you've gathered. And that data set will tell you where you're wasting your time. And you can use that as an inspiration for what system can I create to save me half an hour a week.
That's right.
It's a game changer. It's not fun. Nobody likes doing it. But
it's hard to look at. And you realize, this is why I'm so overwhelmed. But it is the path forward to then creating, a more streamlined schedule and to freeing up a lot of bandwidth.
Yeah, absolutely. These are all such wonderful suggestions. And I want to remind the people listening, I think this is the theme of our conversation today. You won't do all of this at once. In fact, please don't try. Please don't, wake up tomorrow morning and try to create a system and outsource something and decide what you're going to do next in your biz. Like, don't. Just one thing. In fact, maybe after this conversation, do a 10-minute silent meditation and just ask yourself, what is one piece of this conversation that's really speaking to me right now? And then give yourself a month just to be with that one thing and see what happens.
That's right. Slow and steady.
Slow and steady. One thing at a time. One hat at a time.
That's right.
Yeah, I feel this. I feel this so deep in my soul, April. And I am so grateful to know you and to share your wisdom on the Rest and Success Code. And before we wrap up, I have a couple of bonus questions for you that I like to ask all of our guests.
I'm ready.
Question 1, what are your personal red flags that you're edging towards burnout?
I would say, especially for highly sensitive folks, you're going to notice you're more irritable, anxious, and feel like your emotions are just spilling over, right? Like they're right there on the surface. And there's going to be a feeling of dread about anything that you're trying to engage with, not just work, but maybe things that you normally love. And then just feeling that lack of creativity, having trouble making decisions, easily distracted, and then just needing to shut the world out any chance you can get.
Yeah. I feel all of those red flags. Not right in this moment, but in my life, I have felt all of those red flags.
Right.
Okay. And part 2, what are your favorite ways to rest?
Oh, yeah. I mean, we talked about this, how my schedule is set up to rest, which I really love. So that includes not starting before 11, having, really easy, spacious mornings so I can rest as long as I need to. And then I have my time for my morning practice. So I'm big into yoga, meditation, journaling. That's my trifecta for the mornings, which I can really just sink into. And then having space all throughout my week between sessions, between appointments, and then my Fridays. So yeah, it's just built in. So I'm getting lots of rest throughout the whole week.
I hear the boundary piece, like building that in, protecting that time. I love this trifecta: yoga, meditation, journaling. Yeah, that's really inspiring. Thank you so much for sharing. April, thank you so, so much for being here.
Thank you, Megan. It's been a pleasure.
I hope you're feeling calm and inspired after listening to this conversation with April. Truly, the sky is the limit for what we can achieve as highly sensitive business owners. If you want to learn more about April, you can access a variety of resources for building a sustainable business and a balanced life as a highly sensitive person at sensitivestrengths.com or sensitivetherapist.com. I'll be sure to put those links in the show notes. Thank you so much for listening today, and I'll talk to you again next week. Thank you so much for listening to today's episode of Deeply Rested. If you enjoyed this conversation, I would love to invite you to join the Deeply Rested weekly newsletter. You can sign up at deeplyrested.com/newsletter. I hope to meet you in my inbox very soon.